After plenty of hoops talk the last couple episodes, I think you and I both know what time it is. As usually when that happens, I start getting the itch to do a song breakdown. And, as I said in the past, I know I've strayed away from album reviews due to my work schedule and things of that nature. But, that's why I really try to put my everything into these song breakdowns to, still accomplish that goal I've always had to just really, show the deeper levels to this thing we love called hip hop, and especially when it comes to songwriting, right? And today I'm back with another absolute classic in every sense of the word. And might I add, making his H2DG debut for a song slash album breakdown. Technically, he was featured in a previous one, but solo, getting some solo shine. We finally got the Notorious B.I.G. as we'll be getting into his iconic record, one of the most iconic rags to riches stories in all of hip hop, in his reflection, Juicy, off his debut album, Ready to Die. While Biggie was slash is often considered a ferocious MC, I think he's more in that class. He also showed signs of him being smooth, right? Being down to earth. And I think he does that in Juicy. We kind of hear Big offer a toast of gratitude and reflect on his journey up until this point, right? This point of success, while also showing love and kind of offering that same toast of gratitude towards some of hip hop's pioneers that inspired him along the way. So you know the drill, right? We're certainly going to enjoy some bars, some punchlines, rhyme patterns, flow patterns. But as always, what I hope you always get from these episodes is that dirty or clean, everybody has a story. So get ready to travel with me back to 1994 and hear one of hip hop's giants remind us that we all start from somewhere. And while we may very well amass the vast amounts of success, money, fame, whatever it may be, when it comes to our journeys, nothing compares to the priceless feeling of our most grand dreams finally coming to fruition. Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast. It's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. Welcome back to another episode of Hip to the Games. Shout out to you if you are a loyal listener. I appreciate you always coming back. And if you happen to be new here, welcome. It is great to have you on board. Whether you choose to listen on audio platforms or watch on YouTube, I sincerely appreciate all the support. Even recently, I see the social media love, especially from people that kind of seemingly come out of nowhere for me, like all that, like I see that stuff, even if I may not always reply, I certainly try to, but a lot of that stuff, like I see it and it really does, I really do appreciate it, and it helps keeping me going, it helps keep me going, rather, on this journey. So I always appreciate that. But of course, before we start today's breakdown, I got to give my pregame shout outs out the way real quick. The first one always going to the creative director, Jesus Christ, for another H2DG episode, as it's always a blessing to get in front of this microphone and do what he's putting me to do. And then second one goes to my 19 Media Group family. All right, you see the logo in the corner, the blue and white. I appreciate them always supporting and giving me the platform to really execute this idea. And it's always a privilege to represent them and the home team. Be sure to check out the variety of shows we do have on 19 Media Group. We got a great network of independent podcasters hosting shows around sports, music, culture, and I'm sure you can find a teammate of mine to support, whether it's through listens, views, social media, merch. There are plenty of ways to support, and all of it is seen and felt. And as we starting to get into today's breakdown, if you happen to be new to how I do things on here, you should know that I do keep things clean on here. So I will be censoring or even changing words to lyrics that include sexual innuendos, vulgarity, anything that ain't clean. But you better believe I still keep it hip hop, and you will enjoy this episode and leave inspired with a smile, a laugh, and or simply a reminder of why you love hip hop in the first place. All right. So with all that out the way, we can get into some background on Juicy by the legendary Christopher Wallace, aka the Notorious B.I.G. All right, so the first thing I think of when I hear Juicy or when I see the words the Notorious B.I.G. dash Juicy, in all honesty, I think of eighth grade. This all starts in eighth grade for me. Again, I say, one of those moments in my childhood where long before I officially became a hip hop head, right? There was a seed planted that in hindsight, right? I can look back on it now. It kind of foreshadowed that I would one day be an advocate for hip hop. So I'm in science class, right? Eighth grade. I can still like visualize being in this moment and everything I was feeling. We're doing this group project. I literally don't even remember what it was, but it was like four of us. And we're all sitting like there's two on this side, two on this side. And I'm with a group of kids who I knew of, but I didn't really know personally. Obviously, the group projects where you don't get to pick who you're with, it can sometimes create solid moments to learn about others you probably never would have really talked to otherwise, right? So two of my partners get to talking about music, and one of them, another black boy, mind you, he all of a sudden he's like, "Man, if you don't know all the words to Juicy, I'm judging you." So like here I am at that moment, like I freeze internally, like my body stops when he says that because I'm internally panicking for two reasons. Number one, oh my goodness, I'm about to get my black card revoked before I can even afford the responsibility to maintain one, right? Like I'm 13 years old. I have a black permit. I don't have a black card. I got a black permit. And you mean to tell me I can barely keep my permit? I don't even have a black card at this age, right? So I'm stressing about that already. Like, dang, I'm finna get my black card or my black permit revoked. And I barely even started this thing called life, right? And then number two, I'm tripping because I do not know the words to Juicy. And, I can recite the first two lines, right? It was all the dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, right? That was about it. And then obviously, in the chorus, if you don't know, now you know, right? That's all I really knew. So I'm like, oh man, like now I'm not just gonna be judged, right? I'm gonna be judged by one of my own. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna hurt worse to be judged by one of my own. I got my black permit revoked, and now I'm finna be judged by a fellow black boy, and that's not gonna sit right with me, right? So of course, that was all internal. But in reality, I was chill in that moment. I let it pass by. I was free from embarrassment, thank God. But if you know me, and if you're somebody that actually knows me, you should know what happened next. I made it my life's mission to learn Juicy. I'm YouTubing it every day. I download it on my phone. On the bus, I'm listening to it before school, after school. I'm at home eating dinner got Juicy playing. I'm doing my homework. After homework, I'm playing video games, listening to Juicy. Like I made it my mission to know every word in this song. And fast forward, I'm happy to say that if you catch me at my retail job or in the car or something like that, and Juicy comes on, I'm rapping it aloud as if I wrote it myself. It's kind of one of those things I feel like my voice kind of inflects a little higher when that song comes on because I always think back to that moment where I'm like showing people like, yeah, like I know the words. Of course, nobody comes close to Big, right? But it's a song that I can get through with few mess ups. It ain't perfect, but I definitely can say that I know the song, right? So as you can imagine, Juicy has a very special place in my heart with that story in mind. And if we take it back to 1993, 94 ish, we see a 21, 22-year-old Biggie preparing to drop his debut album, Ready to Die. He had made a name for himself around his hood and finally made the choice to ditch the street life and step into his true gift as an MC. And it was a huge moment for him, obviously solo, right? Because pun intended, he got his big break, right? But additionally, it was going to be the very first album released on Bad Boy Records. So like there was this pressure to not just have an impressive debut, but to show that like this new label was going to be legit as well. Now, of course, in hindsight, right, we can look and see how all of that certainly panned out for everybody involved. But Biggie quickly showed his flashes of greatness. And I think the label gradually proved to be obviously one of the most successful in all of hip hop. And much like I shared in my Illmatic album review, when you can get an all-star lineup of producers for your debut album, you're doing something right. And from the great Easy Mo B, obviously had a bad boy Diddy, the Blues Brothers, Chucky Thompson, DJ Premier, Lord Finesse. Like Biggie had some great teammates, great teammates to help him craft, his iconic debut. To this day, Ready to Die is widely regarded as a certified hip hop classic, and it showcases Big's lyrical wit, his gift, his skill, his humorous personality at times, while also revealing some of the internal struggles and hardships, that came with coming up in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy in particular. So much so, in fact, in my eyes, I think the obvious hip to the games comparison is, Shaquille O'Neal. I guess more so Shaquille O'Neal's rookie season, right? Shaq comes out as this number one overall pick, and quickly showed how different he was going to be, with like this physically imposing and intimidating frame, yet this unique style of play in the sense he could run the floor almost like a guard at such a huge size, right? And strong frame, and simply put, Shaq Diesel, he was going to dunk on your head. All right. Shaq Diesel was going to put you in the rim. And lyrically, you could say Biggie did the same, right? They shared this dominance that put them among the best in their respective fields, and made them iconic figures. Because even in 26 years, Biggie showed that he could arguably be considered in the GOAT conversation. And likewise, if you remember, Shaq literally in 3 seasons, just 3 seasons under his belt, he was already named to the NBA's 50th anniversary team when they celebrated 50 years. So they both share this dominance that can't be ignored. So that that's my hip to the games comparison for Biggie. But you know, obviously one of the things that can really stand out as you listen to Ready to Die is that Biggie made several songs that reflected his journey, right? Like you think of Things Done Changed, Respect, Everyday Struggle, and of course Juicy. And he knew it was important to tell his story and let those, especially those who came from his area, let him know that he was just like them, right? Though he might have been a star, though he might have got some money, though he probably got the fat crib, with the crazy TV and all this stuff. He shared the same struggles and hardships and never forgot where he came from. So in the midst of songs like Warning, Big Papa, Suicidal Thoughts, and Just Playing Dreams, right? Biggie made sure to craft a song that covered his rise to fame while maintaining a humble spirit in Juicy. Now, aside from its universal value, another reason why I believe Juicy is so revered is because it was one of those 90s hip hop songs where a rapper spit over an instrumental that seemed to not match their image, right? I think nowadays, especially on like TikTok and stuff like that, you might see stuff like, oh, music that don't match, right? And you see it in basketball videos, right? Like people put like, I didn't seem like Kobe Bryant highlights to Slow Down by, Bobby Valentino. So it's like, what I'm saying, music that don't match. And I think that was kind of what the 90s, a lot of 90s artists, especially rappers, started to do. And again, I think of Tupac over the Isley Brothers, right? And Bury Me a G. Uh, you don't really, the idea of Tupac and the Isley Brothers don't really add up. But then when you see what the artist does with the song, you like, oh, right? Like I think even another example, Ice Cube, right? Even before that, Ice Cube doing Footsteps in the Dark, right? With Today Was a Good Day. Like, oh, like they can slide over these beats too. And I think that was kind of Biggie's moment with Juicy, where he could show the world that he could do that too. I mean, obviously, Big Papa was very similar in that regard, but he was like smooth Casanova. This is like heartfelt, I'm Christopher, right? Forget Biggie, like I'm Christopher right now. So I think that's what made it special. Um, and he rapped over the sample of, if I'm saying this right, forgive me, I forgot to look it up before uh I recorded, but Matooms, I'm sure the N might be silent. I don't know if it's Matooms or Tombs, but of course the song is called Juicy Fruit, right? Biggie, the title is Juicy, the original sample Juicy Fruit makes sense. But that was really a sweet love ballad. We'll get into that a little bit when I talk about the chorus, but it was really a sweet love ballad. So you're kind of like, you know, I don't know about this one. And fun fact, it was actually the genius of Pete Rock, who crafted this for Biggie in an early demo version. But it was redone by Diddy and the track masters for the album by the time the album came out. But funny enough, according to another one of the producers on the project, Nashim Myrick, Biggie, he didn't want to do the song, which I think we can imagine, uh, kind of what I was saying earlier about the image and everything like that. But I think again, Biggie was used to those rugged beats, right? He wanted to cater to his hood and everything like that. He again established his dominance lyrically, right? He wanted something a little more heavy. Um, but I think thankfully he trusted in the vision for the album, knowing that he still needed something for the radio, right? And he made a song that wasn't just something that hit for the radio, but then it became a song that hit the hearts of fans all across the world. And I think his incredible knack to narrate his story over a more laid back beat was like a match made in heaven for the young MC, and as a result, created one of the most iconic songs and rags to riches stories in all of hip hop. And with that, I think that's enough for the background, because it's time to uncover what makes Juicy one of the Notorious B.I.G's most beloved songs.
I mean, if you take those lyrics and you pull them away from the music and you put them up on the wall somewhere and someone had to look at them, they would say, well, this is genius. This is genius work.
All right, so out the gate, Biggie expresses in his intro what this song is about and who it's dedicated to. Most notably his doubters, his haters, as well as those who share an upbringing similar to his own. Right? This album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling in front of, that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter, and all the brothers in the struggle. You know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby, baby. Right? I love that Big started the song this way because it shows where his mind was truly at when he was making not just this song in particular, but the entire album. Every artist I think gets to this point where sometimes, at and I think even at different times throughout their careers, not just the beginning. I think me and Jay Powell talked about this with our song, The Days, right? Shameless plug, go run that song back. Shout out my guy Jarrell. Um, but I think there are those beats that just simply put you in a reflective mindset. So I think hitting the milestone of finally getting a record deal, you know what I'm saying, finally making it, right? Making it out the hood, not having to hustle to earn money, having success in a lane he didn't really think he'd actually make a career out of. All of those realizations had a young Biggie feeling grateful and, I think genuinely fulfilled. And it gave him the opportunity to say, like, yo, this ain't just for me, right? I want to rep my hood. I want to show them it's really possible. I want to show the teachers, right, that just because I may not have been a great student, it didn't mean I couldn't be a successful person. I want those people who were triggered by me hustling to see that it was a desperate measure taken in the effort to provide for my daughter, and now look how much I can and how comfortably I can provide for her now because I finally tapped into my gift and I got this great career going for me. That's I think what this song is, and I think Big makes that very clear before even spitting a single bar. So after that, he starts verse one, reminiscing on his early love for hip hop. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic, Marley Marl. I let my tape rock till my tape pop, smoking weed and bamboo, sipping on private stock, way back when I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match. All right. So as I said, Biggie details his early memories of being a hip hop head. Mind you, Big was born in 1972, so he pretty much literally grew up with hip hop. He specifically remembers an issue of the popular magazine back in the day, Word Up, that featured Salt and Pepper chilling with Heavy D. And what I love about this too is that I love that shout out to Heavy D because number one, Heavy D was one of one. Like you can't mention Biggie, Big Pun, Fat Joe if it wasn't for Heavy D. Because the thing with Heavy D is that he wasn't just the MC, he was dancing too. right? Heavy D and the Boys, he was out there rapping and he was dancing. He was an entertainer. And that's why so much of his career, I think, crossed multiple fan bases because he showed a different image of an MC, right? Like he literally just on the surface, he looked different than the average MC, yet he still had mass appeal, towards the ladies. And, he wasn't just going to spit to boom bap, right? He wasn't just going to give you like hard rhymes, but like he was going, with New Jack Swing, he was going to put some flavor into it and he was going to dance a little bit, he was going to make something fun to rock at the party. Like he was a total package. And it's a reminder that, representation is everything. I'm sure I can imagine a young Biggie, seeing himself in Heavy D growing up. So, it gave him the confidence to rhyme and even do something like this. So, I love that. But, additionally, the shout outs continue as Big shows love to radio DJ Mr. Magic and Juice Crew legendary producer Marley Marl, who had a radio show called Rap Attack back in the day that aired every Saturday evening. The success of Rap Attack helped hip hop kind of spread its reach, and especially in those early years, as you can imagine. So Biggie shouts them out. And then, furthermore, Biggie mentions how he often he would play mixtapes, often to the point that they would pop, right? And before reminiscing on his habits and swag, right? Like what he did in his free time, red and black lumberjack with the hat to match, just reminiscing. But the last thing I want to point out before we continue Biggie's verse is his storytelling skill. And usually this is the part where I have like a nerdy factoid or an analogy of why the greats are great. But Biggie was just gifted, man. Like I have nothing else to really say other than that. He was gifted. Like he was excellent at placing you where he was. And I guess I could put it like this. I think Slick Rick's stories were movies, Nas' stories were like novels, and Biggie's stories were like a TV series. Now, granted, don't miss what I'm saying. All of these guys could make movie like songs. They could make novels, right? They could make TV shorts, series, whatever you want to compare them to. I'm not saying one guy is missing what the other guy had. But what I am saying is like Slick Rick was gonna show and tell and give me a lesson somewhere in there, I think, and Nas, he was gonna build on each event from cover to cover, and several themes would pop up. Biggie was more like, okay, one day I got something funny, the next I got something rugged, and then the next I got something real. It was like you kind of had to be on your toes a little bit. That's why I kind of compare him to a TV series. And what I always tell people, Biggie could make your ordinary routine sound like the dopest thing in the world. Like the dopest thing known to man. Like he had this knack of taking even the smallest details and crafting a rhyme out of it. All great storytellers know how to turn the ordinary into extraordinary, right? You learn that in school too, right? When we're learning, like taking writing classes and things of that nature, what do your teachers always tell you? Use vivid vocab, show and tell. Don't just write, don't just say, um, I looked at her and I thought she was beautiful. It was like, nah, like when I looked at her, the world stopped and my mind froze. And you know what I'm saying? The sweat is profusely running across my forehead, right? Like I'm looking in the windows of her soul. Like you got to be descriptive, you know what I'm saying? So I think you can apply those same principles to rap and songwriting in particular. So that's something Biggie does well for sure. Moving on. Remember rapping Duke, da ha, you never thought that hip hop would take it this far. Now I'm in the limelight cuz I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. All right, so as Biggie goes down memory lane, he even nods to a song from 1984 called Rappin' Duke by Rappin' Duke, or whose real name was Sean Brown. In short, I think this song was like a parody. Sean Brown basically said, what if John Wayne, who often appeared in cowboy films in his career, right? What if he was a rapper? His nickname was the Duke, right? So that's where Rappin' Duke comes from, right? Like literally Rappin' Duke. And even the music video presumably features Brown, although his face is hidden most of the video, a black braggadocious cowboy. So Brown, he fused the braggadocio in hip hop with what a cowboy would likely brag about, like, oh, tending the cattle or whatever. So, if you're around my age or younger, For many of our elders, this is probably like a hilarious childhood, maybe teenage memory. For us, I want you to YouTube this song and understand how viral this could have went and probably would have went in the age of TikTok and social media, period. And you'll notice Biggie says, "Remember rapping Duke, da ha, da ha." And he says it much cooler than it actually sounds. Because it's when you listen to this song, it's really like uh da ha 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 da ha 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 ha. Right. That's how it goes in the song. And I think when Biggie says, never thought that hip hop would take it this far, I think it's with that idea in mind, right? Like hip hop brought that kind of creativity where somebody could basically take a character, right, and turn him into something totally different. But I think it's also like, we come from, we came from that to money, cars, clothes, jewelry, fame, the whole nine. But of course, I think it's also personal too, in that, Biggie himself probably deep down thought he never really thought he could amass the kind of success he's having from hip hop. So it essentially it came a long way from rapping Duke. It came a long way from da ha 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 ha. But then, there's the line, of course, time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. Again, me being almost 26 now, I remember hearing conspiracies when I was younger that Biggie foretold the 9/11 tragedy. But of course, those who were alive remember that the World Trade Center was actually bombed in 1993. So Biggie is referring to that. He compares his rise to fame. Obviously the classic saying, "Oh, I'm a blow up," or whatever. He compares it to that. And then he finishes verse one with more hip hop shout outs and details of his rags to riches story. Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Now, I appreciate these lines more now because I understand that Biggie was likely saying, look, I come from nothing, and the path that I initially was going to run with was not good. And explicitly, it wasn't an earnest, respectable way of living, right? Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. My story didn't start shiny. I remember when we had sardines for dinner. I may be winning now, but it wasn't always this way. And in fact, I was the total opposite of a winner. I always loved how Biggie kept it humble and remembered where he came from. Again, I think again when he passed and he had his funeral procession. Driving through the hood like is just love in every direction. That's why, because Biggie never forgot where he came from, and he applies that same thing to hip hop, right? Never forgetting where hip hop came from. As then he continues with more shout outs like to legendary DJs Ron G, Brucey B, Funk Flex, Love Bug, Starsky, right? DJ and producer who is often credited with being one of the first to coin the term hip hop, right? And even some of those DJs I just mentioned, right? We just learned about those guys a little bit in that episode with Malik Bowie for the Tale of the Tape, right? Again, another gotta watch that documentary to get schooled on the OGs and really how the mixtape started and how important DJs are to this thing. Biggie was doing that same thing in this song. Peace to Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri, Funk Master Flex, Love Bug, Star Ski. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. Call the crib, same number, same hood. It's all good. And if you don't know, now you know. So Biggie ends his verse with a nod, to humble beginnings, expressing how he didn't change with fame. He got the same phone number, still comes home, right? Like even in the music video, you see Biggie walking around his Bed-Stuy neighborhood, right? Most notably that same block where he had his big moment, right? The freestyle at 17 years old on the corner, pass the microphone, I'm the perfect competitor, that one. So he didn't change for nobody. Even when he made it, he still went back to the hood. He still showed love, and it was like another day for him. And that's what you can always respect. And then next we hear the first rendition of the chorus, which, as I said earlier, comes from fellow bad boy R&B trio Total. I think I did forget to mention that earlier, actually, but yeah, Total. Total's on the hook of this song, and they flipped the original chorus from Juicy Fruit, because the one in Juicy Fruit goes, "You know very well what you are. You're my sugar thing, my chocolate star. I've had a few, but not that many, but you're the only love that gives me good and plenty. All right, so like I said, it was a sweet love ballad, pun intended, right? Chocolate star, right? Like it was a love ballad, right? Very romantic. But for Biggie's song, they take more of an ambitious approach and flip that, which I also loved and appreciated more as I got older. You know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. You had a goal, but not that many, because you're the only one. I'll give you good and plenty. And what I really want to focus on is that first part, because to this day, that first part always gets to me, right? You know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. What a reminder to shrug off self-doubt, self-rejection, insecurity, right? As we listen to Big's verses, we're further encouraged by and inspired by his perseverance and his journey to get to this point in his career. And we can then apply similar attitudes, right? And find the motivation and the discipline to keep going no matter what. And even though I often wonder why they kept the title Juicy, like why they didn't do something like It's All Good or Now You Know, right? Maybe and now that I think about it, maybe it's kind of a play on juice, like respect, right? Like this is a respectable story because I truly earned it, right? This is juicy, right? We usually say that as in like, oh, this has a lot of detail, right? But I think this is also juicy in the sense of like it's a very respectable, you know, anthem. And again, that's just my creative brain going, right? I'm sure there's another reason for that. And again, maybe they were just like, hey, it's called Juicy Fruit. Let's just pay homage and drop the fruit, right? Just keep it juicy. It's just, something to think about. But either way, a fitting and inspirational chorus from an immensely inspirational song, which now leads us to verse 2, as Big details more of his change in lifestyle due to his newfound success, which I might add is up there for me. This verse is up there for me as one of the best displays of Biggie's flow. But before we get into all that, if you do like what you're hearing so far on Hip to the Games, here's how you can go above and beyond with your support for the podcast and show some love. As a fan of Hip to the Games, not only should you show your love for the podcast, but you gotta express your love for basketball and hip hop. With a wide variety of clothing and accessories, there is always a way to show how much the game of basketball and the game of rap means to you. Let everybody know what it means to be hip to the games by clicking the link in the episode's description to cop some merch and represent the H2DG lifestyle. All right, so then Biggie kicks off verse 2 like this. I made the change from a common thief to up close and personal with Robin Leach, and I'm far from cheap. I smoke skunk with my peeps all day. Spread love is the Brooklyn way. So I want to pause here just because Biggie details how he came from not so great activities to being in exclusive company with guys like Robin Leach, right? Who hosted Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And how in a nutshell, life is chill for him, before ending with another one of his iconic quotables, right? Spread love is the Brooklyn way. Now I do want to talk bars here for a second because to my ears at least, Biggie had some solid wordplay here. Notice he says, I made the change from a common thief to up close and personal with Robin Leach, which is detailing his evolution. But afterwards, he says, I'm far from cheap. Now, you could say there's an intentional currency linkage of the words change and cheap, right? And that's just literally nerding about a word choice standpoint, right? Again, sometimes when you write raps, when you write, it's not always like the deep meaning. It's sometimes it's literally the connection of words. It's not even like, oh, there's some entendre in there that I'm not catching. Sometimes literally just like that's dope word choice, right? I made the change. I'm far from cheap, right? Just kind of again, that's just how my brain works. That's kind of how I see that sometimes. And I think that's kind of an instance you can point to here with Biggie. And again, not nothing crazy, but just something, bar nerds might catch. If you think how I think, you might catch it. Even if that wasn't Big's intent, right? But of course, he then says, I'm up close and personal with Robin Leach, which that could be a double entendre in the sense that, yes, quite literally, Big got close with Robin Leach now that he's rich and famous, right? And he can have his life detailed on that show. But then you could also imagine Robin Leach made a lot of money from hosting that TV show. So Biggie is saying, like, literally financially, I came from robbing people, hustling to make ends meet, but now I'm in the same class as somebody like Robin Leach, right? So I'm up close and personal in the sense of like, hey, I'm rich and famous, but it's also like I'm rich and famous, like, and my number, like my money's gonna show for it. I can sit at the same table as Robin Leach now. Like I made it. So interesting stuff there. You know me by now. I can't hold these thoughts to myself, right? All for the love of the craft, baby. But just some things that may stand out as you listen. But that said, as you listen, you'll notice at this point of the song too, Biggie seemingly is catching his pocket, right? Or that sweet spot in his verse where he's riding his rhyme slash flow pattern for an extended period of time with flawless execution. The Moet and Alizé keep me. Girls used to diss me. Now they writing letters because they miss me. I never thought it could happen, this rapping stuff. I was too used to packing gats and stuff. Now honeys play me close like butter plate toast. From the Mississippi down to the East Coast. Condos in Queens. Indo for weeks. Sold out seats to hear Biggie Smalls speak. Woo! I mean, Biggie was a machine, man. He could rap anything. That's what I be trying to tell people. Like Biggie was a machine. I can't put it any other way. There's some guys I can talk about, wax poetic about certain guys, but when it comes to Biggie, he was just a machine. Like the words and the phrases would and the narrative would just spill out. He had a word and a phrase for everything. So we still get that rags to riches story, right? He came from private stock liquor, right, that we heard earlier, to Moet and Alizé, right? Uh, the disses from girls have now become love letters, right? Again, while it was a gift of his, he never thought this success was actually attainable for him, but now he's able to experience what he feels is the fruit of his labor, right? Girls, nice condos, lots to smoke, sold out shows. Mind you, Biggie was still only in his early 20s here, so before you go judging, think about your 20s, right? That was success to him. But one thing I really want to point out is those middle lines. Now honeys play me close like butter play toast from the Mississippi down to the East Coast. For years, I didn't know the significance of that first part. What does he mean? Because I used to read it like butter plate toast, like butter plate toast. Now honeys play me close like butter plate toast. And I'm thinking, what the heck is butter plate toast? Like, because I thought that's what he said. So I'm thinking it's like a name brand or something like Pepperidge Farm, butter plate toast, But, he's saying honeys play me close like butter play toast. So he's saying honeys play me close. That's so intimate. It resembles how butter is literally spread on toast. That's how close we are. What an excellent display of syllability. Honeys play me close like butter play toast from the Mississippi down to the East Coast. And even that line, right? It's been alleged that it was a dig at Notorious B.I.G, who was from Mississippi, and apparently who Big really got this song from, right? I know that's kind of a touchy tidbit there, but I really just wanted to showcase Biggie's penmanship there with that one line. Because like I said, he was a machine, man. He was a machine and he was gifted, right? Like even that display, right? Like again, we went over this with Eminem, and you see the same thing with Biggie, like just the syllability and the rhyme scheme, right? Girls used to diss me. Now they write letters because they miss me. I never thought it could happen. This rapping stuff. I was too used to packing gats and stuff, right? Like dude was a genius. Dude was a genius. And then he ends this second verse very similar to verse one, with the theme that no matter what he went through and where he came from, he still made it, seemingly insinuating that the current good always outweighs the rougher past. Living life without fear, putting 5 carrots in my baby girl ear, lunches, brunches, interviews by the pool, considered a fool because I dropped out of high school, stereotypes of a black male misunderstood, and it's still all good. And if you don't know, now you know. So life's good for Big, and he's enjoying it. He had every right to, he can spoil a young Tiana, right? His daughter. He can enjoy meals at a nice crib with a pool. And even as a high school dropout, he's in a position not even college grads may have gotten to, and though he was misunderstood, he finds peace and joy in knowing he proved those people wrong. And yet, he's yet another example in the black man specifically showing that, he could show the world better than he could tell it. That's something my mom always told me, I could show you better than I could tell you. And I think that's something Biggie shows here. And after another rendition of the chorus, Big gets into the final verse of the song, which I think really emphasizes the joy of his rags to riches journey. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. 50-inch screen, money green leather sofa. Got two rides, a limousine with a chauffeur. Right? Another great display of Biggie's flow. Again, one of my favorite parts in the song, just for that pocket. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. 50-inch screen, money green leather sofa. Got two rides, a limousine with the chauffeur. Like, and even in the ad lib, right? You hear Diddy go, woo, like, cause he's that smooth. Like, come on, man. Like clearly you could tell that is like one of the most fun parts to rap. But again, it's detailing those riches, right? Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, 50-inch TV, nice sofa, two whips, and a limo with a chauffeur. Big was balling. Big was balling. Phone bill about 2 G's flat. No need to worry. My accountant handles that. And my whole crew is lounging, celebrating every day. No more public housing. Mm. That last line, right? That's the highlight of it all for Big, I think. Celebrate literally every day because they made it out of their circumstances. Because might I add, that's a high butt phone bill. But but as Biggie said, he don't even worry because he's at a point where he can hire an accountant to take care of that responsibility for him. So while he says his boys are lounging. I mean, they can quite literally lounge in peace, not having to stress over these kind of situations that they once would have had to stress over. And it's like I heard someone say once, money can't buy happiness, but it darn sure invests in it. Biggie seems to utter a similar sentiment there. And he continues with more reflection, which includes a heartfelt ode to his mother, Valletta. Thinking back on my one room shack. Now my mom pimps a act with minks on her back. And she loves to show me off, of course. Smiles every time my face is up in the source. Right. So here I had to learn that Biggie expresses how his mom can now ride on an act, right, which is short for Acura, and then obviously she can wear the fancy mink coats, right? Detailing just how they came a long way from that one room situation to the life of their dreams, really. And of course, behind many successful children is a mom who keeps or a dad, right? Who keeps every piece of praise, recognition, certificate, article, you name it. Shout out to my mama. Shout out to Queen Valletta and all the mamas who support our dreams behind the scenes. Many of us know how much Big loved and cared for his mom, and much of that was detailed in this song. And then Big finishes his last verse in a way that really encapsulates the main idea of the entire song. We used to fuss when the landlord dissed us. No heat. Wonder why Christmas missed us. Birthdays was the worst days. Now we sip champagne when we thirsty. Uh, darn right I like the life I live, 'cause I went from negative to positive and it's all good. And you don't know, now you know. So another great showcase of Biggie's flow and syllability, right? We used to fuss when the landlord dissed us. No heat. Wonder why Christmas, right? He didn't even say Christmas. He said Christmas just to fit that flow pattern. Missed us. Birthday. Worst day. Sip champagne when we thirsty, right? Dope stuff there. But again, I think a credit to Biggie's ability to remain humble, despite being such an iconic figure, is that he never forgot his upbringing. For this to be arguably his biggest single, or at least I could say his most heartfelt single, such a big moment in his life, he still thinks about how the landlord confronted his family, right? How they couldn't even keep the heat on, to the point where Biggie illustrates their financial status by saying Christmas missed them, right? As he personifies the holiday known as the season of giving and acknowledges the lack of receiving that they experience, right? like I said, how powerful that is to say Christmas missed us, right? Obviously, we go through days. Days don't move. Days are static. But he says, like, he personifies and says, Christmas missed us, right? That's how bad it was for them. Um, and even down to birthdays, right? According to Big, they were the opposite, total opposite of exciting and joyous, right? So understanding where he comes from, he has no problems making up for some of that stolen joy, if you will, as he celebrates the way his life has come from the bottom to the top. And it makes me think of Romans 8:18, where the apostle Paul says, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Now, obviously, the context of that verse has much greater implications than success in a career field or living a dream life, right? It nods to the second coming of Jesus, but I think it can serve as a motivator. It can serve as a motivator if you're in a situation like Biggie, right? Because I think the journey can be hard, and for some harder than others. I know for me, I can be honest and say all week I had been struggling to prepare this very episode. I have my hard days. I struggle with procrastination. I consider giving up. I get discouraged when I focus too much on the numbers of my performance and they're not necessarily where I thought they'd be or where I want them to be, all that stuff. There's times I come home from work and I'm just like, and now I got to do the pod, like, or I get to do the pod, right? I try to remain grateful and keep that attitude, like I love doing this, but again, like I have those human moments. um but one thing I keep in perspective is number one, how God wants to use my love of hip-hop to point others to him, and number two, the simple joy of enjoying hip-hop with fellow fans like you, right? So you can imagine for Biggie, as he raised his glass of champagne, it came with the joy of enduring what was once his present, everyday struggle to his eventual, unbelievable success. See what I did there? Song titles, baby. um, uh, you know, and after a final rendition of the chorus, you know very well who you are. Don't let them hold you down. Reach for the stars. You had a goal, but not that many, because you're the only one. I'll give you good and plenty. And there's similar outro lines and ad libs from Biggie. That would bring us to the end of the breakdown. I really enjoyed this one because something about ambition and inspiration always gets me. That always like drives me. But I'm very thankful God gave me the extra energy after a full-time work shift to craft this breakdown because I mean, really, I know you might see how much my eyes light up when I'm talking about basketball, but I hope you see that same glow when I'm talking hip hop. And more so, I hope that you yourself experience that same glow as I take you on these journeys with me. Because I'm telling you, there is so much beneath these bars that we don't always acknowledge. You know what I'm saying? Even today, like it wasn't necessarily the most bar heavy song, entendre after entendre, right? It wasn't as um like versatile, if for lack of a better term, that like the way I am breakdown was. There was so much humanness though. There was if that's even a word, right? In these songs, and that's exactly what I try to help showcase every episode. That's what I hope if you got anything today, is that. If you got some inspirational value, entertainment and all that is cool, but if you got the inspirational value, that's awesome as well. Um, and I think, more importantly, that's what Biggie did here successfully, which I really appreciated because when you think about it, Big doesn't really find himself in those passionate or heartfelt categories, even though he has some very heartfelt and honest records throughout his discography, again, among the top of that being Juicy, you know, he doesn't always find himself in those conversations. So it's dope to see him would have these songs where, and again, where I can showcase these songs and bring light to the great work that Biggie did with a record like Juicy. From the hip hop history nods, to the balanced detailing of the ups and downs of his journey to success. The Notorious B.I.G. certainly made a universal anthem that poetically expresses themes of gratitude and perseverance. I think this song can resonate with literally anybody. I think limelight aside, It's a reminder that while success can mean something different for everybody, true joy is found in the journey, not just the destination. That we can cower to the doubts of others and choose to stay down, or strive for better and soar for the stars, right? And Biggie did a lot with that microphone in such a short time. And he's influenced pretty much every rapper after him in some way, shape, or form, to spit detailed yet effortless rhymes. And still, his impact goes even deeper than the bars, flow patterns and punchlines were juicy, as it touches our hearts and ignites our ambition in ways he likely never dreamed of. So while I won't pressure you to memorize the song, although I do encourage it, um, as always, I hope you give this song a listen, whether it's for the first time or the a millionth time. I hope it gives you another perspective that you may not have considered before. And I hope it inspires you to stay the course in your own journey, no matter who you are, where you're at. I sincerely appreciate you giving me, of all people, a listen, taking time out your day to hear my thoughts on some of hip hop's finest work. Please share any and all thoughts with your boy, as I'm always around for further discussion and celebration on Twitter or IG at Desmond Powell _ if you want to talk some more. I always leave that door open. But here's to another celebration of the God gifted brilliance of hip hop's past, and some well deserved flowers to Christopher Wallace for showing us how to stop and enjoy the fruits of our labor, to honor our hip hop legends, to stay inspired and stay humble in the journey, and take our loved ones with us, and ultimately, you know, let God turn the negative, ugly parts of our stories to the positive, beautiful parts of our stories. And of course, here's a huge shout out to you as well for being hip to the games. And I thank you so much for sticking around for another episode, all for the love of the best combo there is. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.